who the hell is out in the woods in the back of my house with a drill at 8 or 10 o'clock at night? Finally identified it as the call of juvenile barred owls. And actually there are 3 of them. And my neighbor, who's kind of an expert in this stuff, came over. And actually, even in almost pitch darkness, with an amazing camera, managed to get a gorgeous picture of one of these birds. So you must have all that kind of stuff up where you are. W3HLR, W3EMD.
Yeah, okay, Buzz. Very good. W3MD, W3HLR. On 20 past the top of the hour right now. You know, I haven't seen any barn owls around here, but you do hear the mullerning doves and some others. But in the springtime, when they all start coming up from Miami and wherever they come from, one thing I neglected to do was at certain times when they arrive, I liked getting out my portable digital audio recorder and having things set up and put the headphoniums on and crank up the incoming gain up all the way. Oh, God. The built-in cardioid pattern electric condenser microphoniums are, they're all right. They tend to lack a bit in the low end, but using a computer audio production software known as Cool Edit Pro, there's a multi-band equalizer, and there's all kinds of things you can do. And I call it vacuum extraction, where I listen closely, and in my head I can tell what's lacking, and I'll set the EQ and run the file. Then when it gets done being processed, I put it on, listen to it on what I would consider to be a fairly decent monitor speaker driven by an okay audio amplifier, and I can hear what's going on. I can hear if I've made an improvement, and I've taken some pretty lackluster sounding music and brought out the vocals and brought out the the deeper like the stand-up bass git fiddle and whatnot, and some of the drums and that kind of thing. Yeah, well, you asked me about the modulator tubes. There's a number of ways of doing it. At first, see, the grid does not get driven with a signal. The screen, see, a typical driver transformer would be a small garden variety modulation transformer, like say one from a Ranger, for instance, or damn, where you have, say, a single-ended modulator tube. And you have a transformer, depends on what your modulator tubes are, as far as the peak screen-to-screen driving voltage. You get full audio out of it. There's nothing really published on it. It has to be done and measured and all that, and what do they call it? Quantifying it. So you know what you have and what you need to do to get there. So I just kind of guesstimate So what you can do is you take these small modulation transformers that may have a secondary with a few taps on it. It's not a center tap secondary like that of a Ranger mod transformer. But I'll use the secondary as the primary. And then I'll use the primary as a secondary, and generally with a modest impedance step up, like the mod transformer out of an AM67 and 68 makes a damn good driver transformer. Using a single-ended tube like a 6L6 that wants some negative feedback around it. And that directly drives screens. Center tap of the primary goes directly to ground. But depending on what you're using for modulator tubes depends on whether you need bias. For instance, with the big TV sweepies like the 6KD6 and whatnot, that's what I put in the Valiant that I've got. And that was back in 1984 when I was discovering all this stuff. You needed about 6 volts or so of negative bias going to the control grid. But being that the control grid does not have any audio signal impressed on it, you don't have to worry about regulating it. So you could just have a pot and like a little bit of a bias sample voltage and set the operating point. An easier method, which I did here, is rather than do that, I found I needed about 2.7 volts or so just by seriesing up a number of these 6 amp 1 kV PIV diodes. I have a crap load of them, and I don't know, I think I have 5 of them in series. And I see about 2.7 volts across the whole thing in series with a cathode to ground. And the modulator is idling at about 70 mils and kicking up to about 125. The original power supply was a little over 400 volts. Had a pair of 5U4s in parallel. I quickly solid-stated it while I was testing, but the voltage was woefully low. So I had this other power transformer that's a Generous Electric thing that came off another carcass that I want to redo. And I thought, after taking measurements and all, I was like, geez, I can put that thing in there, put a bridge around it, pick off the center tap, and that'd provide voltage for the speech amp and audio driver. The stock audio driver was a pair of triode connected as low mu screen to plate 6F6s in push-pull. I'm using 6L6s. I changed out the driver transformer to this really old Buzzard Thorderson driver transformer. I'm sure you've seen the black wrinkle finish and terminal board on one end to set up impedance ratios and all that. Same mod transformers, the CHT series. I call them the Wurlitzer jukebox type mod transformers because of their physical shape. So I'm using one so-called 15-watt driver transformer that I had kicking around. It's not necessarily broadcast quality or anything like that, but I thought, it'll do for this. It'll work, and I'm really surprised at how well it does work. I didn't expect it. W3MD from W3HLR.
Yeah, W3HLR, W3MD. With your current system, what about the screen grids? Is there any non-zero volt?
He was just doing a little listening. Just doing a little listening on in the AM window. A little hoot, little owl talk, and then they went into hot and heavy technical stuff, which is way above my pay grade. Anyways, hope everybody's doing well. This is a quick check-in. Really quick, I'm going to be around the next few days, planning on doing some radio, so you should see some stuff hit the channel. And hope everybody's well. We'll catch you all later.